Hey everyone, I'm Guy Garcia. I'm a professor at Université Laval in Quebec City, Canada. I work in phonology, and a lot of what I do requires document compilation, typesetting, and so on. And to do that, I've been using LaTeX for a while, about 10, 12 years, but recently I've decided to try out a new language called Typst. It's already pretty popular, but not so well known across the board. Not a lot of linguists use Typst, I think, at this point. And I wanted to make sure that I would be able to switch from LaTeX to Typst before I actually did it, right? Because you would have to test out the language and make sure that you are able to produce everything that you want to produce. And I decided to finally switch languages because I realized that it is possible, and you can actually do a little more with Typst than you would be able to do with LaTeX, considering the amount of work that would be involved. And that's the reason why I created this very short series of introduction videos for the language, for Typst. And the plan is to end the series with a video for phonologists, for people looking into Typst and for people who need to produce documents in phonology, and to introduce a package that I've been developing called PhonoKit. So let's get started here. Right on the website. The website is called typst.app. This offers you a pretty similar experience to what you would have with Overleaf and posit.cloud if you use R, for example, online. So it's kind of the easiest way to try out Typst is to use their own editor online. It's free and it's right here. So the first thing you will notice when you work with Typst, if you're coming from LaTeX, is that it is much lighter. So if you decide to install it, which is something we'll touch on at a later video, it is much lighter. It is much faster. The compilation times are virtually simultaneously. It's really, really quick. And it's also a much smoother learning curve. So if you haven't used LaTeX and you were planning to learn, like if you're a student, for example, learning Typst will be much, much faster. And finally, the error messages, the debugging is also much easier, much more user-friendly and intuitive. So we'll start working on a simple document. And the first thing you'll notice is that if you're coming from LaTeX, is how simple it is to just start typing, because you could just add a title with a function called title. You'll notice that functions will always begin with a hashtag, and we'll just write something like my Typst document, and you can see the end result appears almost instantaneously on the right hand side. Now, to add a heading for the introduction, we do $, and we'll write introduction. You can see, again, it appears instantaneously, and now you can just start typing, right? So you could say, this is our text. This is bold. So you'll notice that I'm using asterisks for bold. Very, very familiar if you've already used Markdown. And this is italics with underscores around the word. You can also do lists. Of course, you can do everything that you can do with LaTeX or any other typesetting language, even Markdown, right? So you can also do lists. So you can do numbered lists, unnumbered lists with the hyphen. So item 1, item 2, etc. You can also do numbered lists, of course, with plus sign. So you can also do numbered lists. Here you go with a plus. So item 1, item 2, etc. You can add links. I'll just kind of go over the most basic stuff in this first video. So as you can imagine, you can do a lot here. There's a lot of documentation, which we'll discuss later on, but this is just to give you a feel for the actual interface. Right. So you can see that up until this point, if you come from LaTeX, you'll notice that there's no preamble at this point. There's nothing special. Maybe the function title at the top, but everything else is very minimal, very, very quick too, which is something that is probably the first advantage that you notice if you come from LaTeX. All right, so you can add a link. Let's say, again, we use the hashtag for the function. The function is called link, very intuitive. Here you can just do any URL, HTTP as let's do typst.app. So this is a link to Typst. Okay, so a link to Typst goes here, something like this, right? So you can see there's no color yet. It is a link. You can click on it and it will go straight to their website, straight to where we are right now. It's just, it's not blue, which is what you would expect from different editors. We'll talk about that later. For now, we'll just keep everything very basic. So this is just to give you a sense of how functions work and headings, etc. So we can, you can probably guess at this point that a subsection will be 2 equal signs. So this will be, let's say, we'll talk about tables for a minute. So we can add a table by using the function called table, which is very intuitive. So we'll do something like a table like this, and inside table we'll have our content over here. So we could do something like not a caption. Let's do first number of columns. Inside the argument here, inside columns, we'll just add what exactly is the width of the columns that we want to put in our table. So we could do something like, let's just let it decide for us. I'll do auto and auto. So this already tells the function that we'll have a column, 2 columns, so a table with 2 columns. We don't want any lines, so we'll just do stroke none. And this is kind of to simulate a typical book tabs, LaTeX style, scientific style table. And then we could just do table header. And inside table header, we can do the names for the 2 columns. So column 1 over here and column 2. And I'm using asterisks because I want the header to be bold. At the end, we just skip and then we can just start writing. Okay, so it will automatically fill out all the cells. Now it's a bit too minimalistic for my taste and for most papers, so you would probably want to add something like a table H line over here. Now you could inside H line specify the width of the line. So if you do stroke colon 1 EM, for example, this would be obviously too much. So you could do half of that or 25% of that, something like this. So you can see it's very kind of easy and very responsive to adjust. And then now, of course, you can just copy that and paste it under the heading, perhaps a little thinner, something like this. And finally, at the bottom, you could do one more just to give you a sense of how this works. Yeah, let's do 15 or something, just to kind of give you an example. All right, so one interesting thing is that inside table H line, so this would be equivalent to / H line in LaTeX, or something like mid rule if you're using book tabs, for example. So one nice thing about the H line is that you could theoretically do something like start 1, and this will tell the line where it should start in terms of the positions of the column. So you can see it's very easy, much easier in terms of the amount of code you have to write compared to LaTeX, just to give you an example. Now, so far, this is a nice looking table, but it's not really an object that we can refer to. It's not centered, etc. And to do that, the easiest thing to do is to use the function figure, and we'll just wrap the table with that function. So I'll just put it in here. We will remove the second hashtag. So the moment you have the hashtag figure function, the function that goes inside doesn't need to have the hashtag. It's kind of embedded. And here we can do caption, and the caption will be, I don't know, my Typst table, something like that. So you can see that even though we used hashtag figure, inside that function, there's a table function, and therefore the function itself has realized that we're talking about a table and not a figure. So it automatically detects the type of object that you have inside. You can obviously overwrite it, but we don't have to write here because it's already correct. So this is just to give you a sense of how to create an object for a table. It's relatively straightforward. Of course, you can pair this up with snippets, depending on which text editor you use. And so you could have all of this automatically added to the document. And finally, figures. So actual figures. I already have a figure here inside my project. And so we could just add something like this. Right, so we have an image. Here's the file that I have. You will notice that it's immense right now. So we definitely want to change the size of that. Otherwise, it will be immense. So let me just break the lines just to give you better syntax here. Now, you will notice that because we're using the app online, it obviously has all the auto-completion that you would expect from a Typst editor. And so here you'll notice that we can scale, we can adjust the width, etc. So in width, I could do something like 7 centimeters. Something like that. And of course, we can do caption just like before. And you will notice that it can tell that it's a figure, not a table, because of course inside figure we don't have the table function. So you can see it's pretty smart and automatic. There's a lot of things you don't have to do and they'll be there automatically. So this gives you a sense of a very simple document. The first video in the series. I don't want the videos to be too long. So you can see here we can have basically the headings. We can have objects like tables and figures very quickly. It's very quick to compile as well. This is a PDF, of course, but we'll see later that you can compile to PNGs as well. It's very, very practical and very useful even for creating logos. Even for that, it would be quite useful. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on. So this is it for the first video, and I hope you enjoyed the series. See you next time.